Board of Education School District 2 regular workshop meeting is now in session. It's August 9th, 2023 at 6:30. Call to order. Can I get a roll call?
Mrs. Dye?
Here.
Mrs. Gonzalez?
Here.
Mr. Laudadio?
Here.
Mrs. Leyva?
Here.
Mrs. Miller?
Here.
Ms. Parthamos? Mr. Stoltman?
Here. Okay, we established the quorum. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public comments.
Nope.
Okay, presentations regarding bus cameras.
Sure, we have one presentation tonight. As the board knows, we investigated bus cameras throughout last year. A committee did convene consisting of Paul, Keith, Claire, Justin, and I to review the options from 6 different vendors. Verkada ended up being the vendor of choice due to the features that they offer and the ease of use specifically in emergency situations. So John Hickmat is here with us tonight to share an overview of the product, its features, and answer any questions that the board might have.
Perfect. I'm ready to rock. I'm not going to bore you guys with a slideshow. I'm going to try and run through this pretty quick. Plan to run through this pretty quick, do a quick demo of the environment, what it looks like, some of the benefits of the school district, and then I'm the firing squad. You guys can pepper me with any questions, and I'll be ready to answer them. So, curious, just quick raise of hands. Anybody not know who Verkada is? Great. It's the curly-headed kid with a nice smile. Just kidding. Yeah. Nice smile. That's
like
the good part. So Verkada is a physical security company. We've been around since 2016, and really the focus for school districts is a student safety initiative. Much more than a camera company, much more than just a, hey, we can solve this small little issue. We are trying to change the game into what you can do as far as your building goes. So the focus of today will just be bus cameras, but Verkada is built to make any kind of building safer. From your cameras, your badging in and out of the building, guest management, alarm systems. You guys have some vape detectors. Kind of the one-stop shop for student safety is what Verkada's goal is for you guys. I actually work just here in DuPage and Will counties. So Verkada's worldwide. We've got offices in Australia, South Korea, but myself, I just work right here in the counties. I come out here probably once every 2 months or so, and here's some of the school districts you guys might be familiar with. 2 that are good to know that I've worked with pretty closely is Benjamin 25 and Wooddale 7 have been probably since I started, and since I met Dr. McCluskey, we've had some pretty successful deployments here in DuPage County. Been a lot of fun. So if you're not familiar with this old system architecture, it's kind of what you may have seen in other districts. This is a lot of arrows and dots and may seem complicated, but the basic structure here is that there's a couple of points of failure to a traditional camera system. In regards to a bus, this is kind of what we often see is there's a camera on a bus. It runs to some type of switch or NVR, DVR that has an SD card on the bus. And then you have to, in order to retrieve footage, go to the bus, pull the SD card, plug it into your computer, download it. Hopefully it downloads correctly and doesn't take a long time. And then you have to share it however you're going to share it. So this is kind of the old architecture that we've seen, and really why Verkada started is to make a change to this architecture, to make it easier, to make it simple. And the basic infrastructure is kind of what you would consider your Apple devices. Is the single pane of glass, everything in one place, really, really easy to use. So you have a piece of Verkada hardware, a camera, a vape sensor, the data goes to the cloud, and then you can access it anywhere. One thing to note is that Verkada's data is encrypted at rest, so when it's happening and when it's sent to the cloud. So but all of the data is encrypted in 2 places. That was quick. Any questions before I jump into kind of the bus and the proof of concept we've done here in the district? Sweet. We did a little proof of concept here. You guys may recognize
Joe.
Joe. He's a good friend. He was here the other night helping us out here. So These are screenshots of what's currently in one of the buses here for the district. Took us some time to get to this field of view. Katie and Dustin and I and a couple of guys were on a sweaty bus for 2.5 hours, holding up cameras, making sure we could get the right view. And this is the view that we really felt like gave, for the least number of cameras, the best view into the seats and for kind of the full aspect of the bus here. So this is during the day, and here's some screenshots of these wonderful bus drivers came and drove this around at night for us. Kind of the field of view for any type of field trips, athletic events that you guys are going to get at night. I was actually really impressed myself when I pulled these up on Monday night. I was like, wow, these are pretty dang clear for having these at night, and these are just screenshots. So this is clarity of a screenshot. You guys are going to obviously be able to go into the actual camera itself and have a much clearer image. But this is kind of the view that we settled on. It's 3 cameras, one at the front, and then one in the middle and one in the rear on a 180 view to get most of, I would say it covers like 90% of the seats here. And we determined that that's about as much as we can cover, just to be able to not sacrifice getting into the seat and seeing what's happening with students inside the seat. So the fisheye is the 2 on the side of the bus, and the front of the bus is just a little mini dome to cover the bus driver. I can't remember what they called the rocket seat. That's what I can kind of think of it as. And then the entrance of the bus. So that's the intention of the front camera, is to be really narrow and focused on what's happening there at the front. We've had issues. That's what we determined was the best step necessary. And then the fisheye was determined to get the best field of view for what
And
the
those
district
views
was.
were really determined by Claire and what she saw. Claire's our transportation director, for anybody who doesn't know that. And that was really important to her, to be able to have a view out of the bus in case there were people waiting out there or somebody tried to get on the bus that shouldn't be on the bus. We would have view of that as kids are getting off the bus. You would be able to see that they actually got off the bus. And then into the seats was really important to her. She didn't want to just be able to see over the seats. She wanted to be able to see in the case that kids were doing something that they shouldn't be. You know, we have access into the seats.
I do have one question. With the mini-series camera that's on the driver, is that a varifocal lens? Because I'm just a little bit, it's not really getting the steps into the bus, it's more getting the seats in the driver. Is there any option to kind of widen that view a little, possibly?
With the mini dome, it is varifocal, and there is an option to like just rotate the lens as we install and get the most perfect field of view. But there is also an optical zoom within the software, so if you do need to zoom like down into the steps, you can like pretty much zoom out the door if needed to see what's going on out there as well.
And we did test that too.
Cool. Let's get out of the boring part. This is kind of the setup if you want a visual where the buses are on, or the cameras are on the actual buses. It was fun. It was sweaty to figure this out.
It's probably the hottest day.
Yeah, and they weren't running the AC, they just had it on. They just wanted me to suffer. It was like, West Texas kid, he'll be alright. Cool, let's get out of this boring part of the slideshow. I barely made it through high school, so I'm in tech sales. Just kidding. Just kidding. Can everybody see this okay, or should I zoom in a little bit?
There you go.
Okay, cool. There's just a couple of things that I want to showcase here that makes Verkada really powerful in being able to find footage, save it, and share it. Now more than ever, we have emergency situations happening, and what's really, really vital is getting eyes and ears into a situation. So Verkada can do it with 2 clicks rather than having to spend a ton of time. So anybody have their cell phone quickly accessible to them? Marisol, you're the first one. I'll show you how quick it is. If you guys hear a radio in, something happening on the bus, this is just showing what's happening here inside the school, but I'll just show you how quick it is. If you need to get eyes and ears, 1 click, 2 click. What's your cell phone number?
312-493.
Can we wait?
Hold on, it's for live streaming.
Oh, I will do this. 312.
Wait.
We're live.
We're live streaming.
Yeah.
You know,
I know. Here, I can do this. I can type it out and give it over to
Dustin, do you have it?
Yeah.
Dustin has it, he's putting it in.
Oh, perfect. Thank
Yeah. There we go.
The teachers, I think.
I don't have myself recording my phone.
Oh, perfect.
It'll text, right?
Yeah, it's nice.
Got it.
So with the 2 clicks, this is really vital to get eyes and ears into situations really quickly. If you guys have, what I'm seeing in school districts is they'll have an officer that's attached to the school, and they'll just type in their name. It's a contact at the school district, and as long as they're put in at some point at the very beginning, if you change and you want a new officer, you type in their name, it's 2 clicks.
So if we had an incident occurring on our buses, it would take us 2 clicks to get a live view into the police department where they could be watching where the bus was going, who was on the bus, what was happening on the bus. They could hear what was happening, and be moving along to get there. And they would have access from their phone or from a stationed computer.
Does it have like GPS too or something? I don't know.
What's interesting, the Verkada cameras don't have the GPS, but what is running the Verkada cameras, the Cradle Point, which is the cellular network, does have a GPS feature. So you still are able to track the buses, it's just not the camera itself, but the bus does have a GPS tracking ability with what's running the cameras. So it can be done, yes.
Thanks, Dustin.
Of course.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We won't prank
I don't
calls.
want to give your cell phone number out, so. And for the record, Joe was quick on the volume piece, so that was good.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Good looking at this.
So saving is really, really quick. The only other thing I would point out is investigations. We hear all the time that people spend a long time finding footage of what happened on a bus. You know, you have kids, there's a lot that's happening, and you get bits and pieces of information. You maybe got, hey, I think the kid was wearing an orange shirt and a backpack. Or, hey, the kid was at the back of the bus, and I think it was a boy that started the fight, or whatever. You don't have a lot of information. And so what's really helpful with Verkada is we have some powerful analytics to help you guys speed up these investigations. So if you click into a camera, what we're able to do is just do a quick search of, let's just say, black shirt, upper body, black shirt, and wearing a backpack. And then it's going to just start to pull footage from these cameras if it's on a bus of anybody that matches this description. Nobody matches the description of wearing a backpack in black. But then you can quickly scroll through the footage here to be able to find out and understand what's going on. You can further detail this. You can go down to within the hour. You can go by the day. This is some really powerful and accurate analytics to do investigations. So speeding up the time that these assistant principals or anybody that's dealing with this to find an investigation or to find a situation, and then it's 2 clicks to share. So again, it's not having to pass around a USB around the district to have everybody know what's going on or put everything on an email chain and it gets lost. Again, to share footage, 2 ways to do it. You can share it live, you can share that link live, or you can put it in a little archive, which I think is really helpful. If you just call this like bullying event or bus incident, you call it bus incident, you create the archive, and then it lives inside your archive forever. So unlimited archiving, we have unlimited users, you guys can have this live, and then when someone needs to go and review this footage, it lives under here forever. You can put multiple cameras, you can put multiple views of the camera, so when they come and look at this investigation, it's all in one place. Really easy access. Any questions on the camera portion? I would say those are the really quick, impactful pieces of what cameras can do to find, save, and share footage quickly.
I actually have a curveball question I just thought of.
Shoot it.
Since the district has like an Avigilon camera system, and if they get, say, a bully incident that happens on the bus, and then they have a bully incident that happens that follows into the school, is there a way to have both of those footages kind of shared, or do they have to be in separate places?
The only way to do that would be to kind of know the time that it happened, because Verkada is going to timestamp the event, and it's going to know what time. You would then just match the timestamp to the event that's happening inside the Vigilon software that's holding all of their camera footage. So there's no way to like pull the camera footage and then push it into a Vigilon. That way, we can stream it live, so if they want like a big view of everything, we could do that. But we can't like match the two viewing softwares. It'd be like Netflix and Hulu.
Gotcha. No, when I saw your analytics end of it, I was like, oh, if you're that in depth, I threw that extra curve out there to see if that was possible. Because we don't even have those analytics on my campus. I would love to have that stuff.
It's getting there. Okay, cool. I'm almost done here. I know I'm boring by slideshow. I'm ready to be done and answer any more questions. So just to share quickly, this is kind of in a nutshell, what Verkada does really well. It's in a single pane of glass, consolidated infrastructure, meaning you're not like piecing together a smorgasbord of softwares to put everything together. We can put it all in one place. We can also do it one piece at a time or every piece at a time. Verkada is not built to be like, hey, we need to spend everything to rip and replace the entire district. It can go piece by piece and just solving whatever issue is at hand, currently the buses. And then it natively integrates with itself. So as things start to come up in the district, the vape sensors, bus cameras, they can live in one place and it just happens. You don't have to have a huge uplift in architecture to make it integrate. This last piece before I kind of get into the proposal piece that we put together is Verkada's structured in a way that you pay for hardware, which has a 10-year warranty. So overnight replacements, anything breaks, we overnight all of that, and then a license. So each piece of hardware has a license, come in 1, 3, 5, or 10 year. The reason we've done it this way is so that you can predict this is going to cost over a period of time. You don't have to worry about unpredicted costs, servers going down, 2-year manufacturer warranty on one camera versus a 3-year on another camera versus a 5-year on a sensor. Every piece of Verkada equipment, 10-year warranty and one license. So this is exactly what it's going to cost. I'm not going to be surprised by any hidden costs, technician costs, anything. We're going to pay for it all under our warranty and our license. You know what's coming. So this is what you guys can see. This has the Verkada cost of a camera here and what it would cost over a 5-year period. So the upfront cost you guys see there is what would be the hardware, the install, the cradle point, which is going to be the cellular connection so that this can be viewed live, and the licensing. So this would be the one-time upfront cost for this solution. The ongoing cost isn't a Verkada cost. This is actually the Verizon cellular connection cost. That would be an ongoing, just like you pay for your cell phone by the year. And that's actually handled by your in the area technician, Anthony Gilboy from Taylor Security. He's, funny enough, the president of Taylor Security, and he's kind of our point man here on this project. That's handled by him. He handles that piece, and that's the only ongoing costs for something like this is to make sure the cellular connection is running. So you'd see a total cost over 5 years. Oops, I need to go backwards. Total cost over 5 years includes running this yearly, you could call it cell phone plan, over 5 years, and then the one-time cost upfront for Verkada.
And that's for the entire fleet of buses.
Yeah, that's for all, I think the number's 18 buses.
And so I have a question, Paul. We are voting on 2 or 3 new buses, right? Are those replacement buses or new buses?
Yeah, we're holding the fleet number at 18.
And can you speak to that a little bit, because I think that's important for the board to know as well, that these cameras can move with new buses. They're not, we have to buy new cameras when we get a new bus.
Right, she said it perfectly. If one bus breaks down, can't be fixed, we can pull the infrastructure and put it in a new bus. It's not stuck. If you guys decide, hey, we're going to get rid of bus drivers and go fully electronic on Tesla buses in 5 years, then you could pull off these cameras and put them on a Tesla bus if that's the direction you want to go. It's very
Now, is
movable.
that something that we do, or do we have you guys come out and change the location of the cameras?
Either or, it could be handled by your team here, or that would actually be handled by Tailored Security. So our boots on the ground here, he's like 25 minutes from here is where he lives, he's headquartered out of. So knowing Anthony, he would probably be like, yeah, I'll just do it. He's been great to work with the district. He's been awesome. So could be either or. Honestly, anybody I think in this room could set up a camera. It takes a camera.
Yeah, not me.
Go ahead.
Old school system, we don't have any cameras on our buses. What is that, what are you talking about there?
Yeah, so this old school,
System, not here, just a traditional camera system.
yeah, this would be a traditional, you put 3 or 4 cameras on a bus with the,
You got those figures.
server, NVR, DVR, SD cards. This is an approximation cost of what we've seen for some other traditional service. This includes hardware, install, server costs, licensing costs, kind of the all-inclusive costs here. You can find a little bit of a cheaper camera, hardware-wise. I'm not shy of saying Verkada is a little bit more of an expensive product as far as a hardware piece goes. But we don't require any of this ongoing maintenance. We don't require any server updates. We don't require any firmware updates. It's helpful to know is like, once you buy a license, that is the dumbest your camera's ever going to be. If we release a new analytics in 2 years, automatically you get it. If the state of Illinois says, hey, facial recognition is cool now, you don't have to pay extra for it, it just works. So as Verkada gets better and as Verkada improves, so does your system, so does the ability for you guys to quickly speed up the time on investigations, to have your staff spend less time doing all of these investigations, updating the buses. I've heard of long downtimes of updates, 4 or 5 hours to update a server to then be able to use the software that the cameras are running on. It's just we're eliminating a lot of unknowns, and that's where this ongoing cost piece would come from. There's a lot of this unknown replacement costs, any of that here. So this is obviously this is approximation based on some of the other systems we've seen bids on. But over a cost of 5 years, you're seeing that Verkada is going to save you money and to do a lot more here. And then the last piece there is what is this going to cost? Once a 5-year license is up, that's what this is built on. Is a 5-year license is just the license renewal. So you take any of the extra costs that were here up front, install and everything else, and it's just a one-time renewal of the 5-year licenses for the buses.
So I got a question on the cradle. So say if we're running buses in certain areas and we find out Verizon is just lackluster in performance, is that cradle unlocked to switch cell providers? Or say if we happen to find a cell provider under an educational discount that might save money, is that option ever open, or are we locked with Verizon?
Cradlepoint right now runs Verizon and then AT&T. So it's primary Verizon, and that's just a Cradlepoint thing. And we found in these, you could call it remote deployments or away from a LAN, is that Cradlepoint's the best offering we have that we've been able to find. So not saying that we couldn't do another provider, it would just be a different cellular module on the
Well,
bus.
that makes sense because Verizon and AT&T phones are cross-compatible, and Sprint and T-Mobile are because they use a different protocol. But if it's unlocked, then I guess you could use any cell coverage. But I was just wondering if there was an option to ever change, if that was ever an option.
Yeah, I'd say the only reason to change is if it gets really spotty on one route. Maybe you switch 1 buses or 2 buses actual Cradlepoint or cellular provider, but other than that, they do have backup. I think that's it. Any other questions? Concerns, comments?
I guess I have one more. What's the retention of how long is the video stored? Do we set the parameters of how long we want that video stored, or do we have X amount of storage and then it just overwrites at that point?
Great question. So archiving is forever. Anytime you save a piece of footage, you'll have it forever, which is helpful. And then these cameras are based on 30 days of storage, and it's smart that day, let's call it July 31st, would back erase on August 30th. So August 30th comes, it's gonna not give you access to July 31st.
So we archive a ton, we have unlimited storage with a 30-day retention.
Right, unlimited storage with 30-day retention.
Gotcha.
That's it, any more questions? Okay, thanks, John, appreciate it.
Thank you. So we'll bring this back to the board for a vote on the 23rd.
All right, moving on, announcements.
have 2 board members celebrating birthdays this week, so I just wanted to acknowledge Anita and Jim. So happy birthday to them. Today was also a really exciting day. We welcomed 32 new teachers into the district. They spent the day with us getting to know the district, the curriculum, our programs. They were really excited and super energized to be here, and really excited to get into their classrooms, and they're excited for the kids to come. So it was really fun to see such a great group of educators coming together today. We are still in need of a few more positions. We're still looking for 1 3rd grade bilingual teacher, 8 instructional aides, 3 bus drivers, and a lunch aide. So if you hear anything in the community about somebody looking for a job, please forward the website to them so that they can apply. And then lastly, I'm very excited to announce that we did submit finally our application for the first ever multi-district grant between Wooddale, us, and Fenton. I want to give a huge shout out to Linda Swinkowski. She's our grant manager. I can't tell you enough. She has spent her own personal time at night, on the weekends, pulling this data from the 3 districts together to put this grant together so we could finally hit submit. So I cannot thank her enough for that work. So it's in the hands of the federal government now, and we should hear something by late October on if they're going to approve our application or not.
Great. Okay, consent agenda. Anybody have any questions on the consent agenda items? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Stoltman?
Aye.
Mrs. Leva?
Aye.
Mrs. Parthamos?
Aye.
Mrs. Miller?
Aye.
Mrs. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Mrs. Dye?
Aye.
Mr. Ladavia?
Aye. Okay, conference action items. A, policy reviews.
We've got
Mr.
five policies up here that we listed for you, as Dr. McCluskey said in a recent board update. What we're trying to do here is make sure that when press comes out with policies, we've always looked at them, but here we're writing down that we've looked at them. And if we have comments that are worthy of your attention, we try to list them here to get your reaction. So for these 5 policies, I'm not recommending anything, but sort of the point of the handout is for you to look at one of them and say, no, I want to deal with that one. So please let us know. You can do that now. You can do it at another time in the future. We'll try to make this an ongoing project. Press reviews anywhere from 15 to 40 policies at each quarter, roughly. So this meeting, the next couple meetings, we'll get through the current list and then be ready for the next one. I'm happy to answer any questions about any of these policies.
Any questions? Okay, go to B, second reading policy. Revision 2-120, board member development.
This is the same policy that we presented last month for change. The only change that's added is that it acknowledges board members are required to have some training on trauma-informed practices for students and staff. So if you don't have any questions, I would recommend that you adopt it the way it's presented.
Okay, do we get any questions, anybody?
I have a question. I think I've asked before.
Okay.
Is it the same, I was just curious, because I've done that training. So I don't know if people have used resources to do that kind of training or whatnot, but is there any kind of like, is it specific to board members or is it, I just wondered if I could do it twice or anyone knows.
So you would have to do it for it to be recorded by Cindy as being completed. So if you did it in another format somewhere else, that would count for your board training.
You can never be informed enough, I see.
Yeah, I think as an existing board member, you're not subject
You're
to
not
this
required, it
particular
was new
topic.
board members that are required, but it is optional to you if you want to.
I think that IASB is gonna present it at the same time they present their, I think, 3 other mandatory topics, so they're folding it into that. If you want us to just let you know the next time the training's gonna happen, we can certainly send it to you, so you wanted to jump in on that
I
session.
believe it's online.
Yeah, it is an online
It's on-
course. I can look into it and send you the information.
Well,
but
I'm
both Victoria and Anita
Did it already.
did it already.
I'm just curious, I was just curious if you've done it through the state, through different avenues, if it counts. twice.
That wouldn't count,
It
no.
has to be, okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was curious about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, do I get a motion to approve the second reading policy revisions 2120 board member development?
Motion. A second.
Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Dye?
Aye.
Ms. Parthamos?
Aye.
Mrs. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Mr. Stoltman?
Aye.
Mr. Laudadio?
Aye.
Mrs. Miller?
Aye.
Mrs. Leyba?
Aye.
Okay, see, bus driver hourly wage increase. Mr. Novak.
Yes, we continue to monitor the market for all employees. The bus driver market is exceptionally tight. It's been this way for a couple of years. We've raised bus driver pay more than once in the last 3 years, but it hasn't been enough to attract new drivers. So what we're recommending here is an additional $2 on the starting pay for new drivers, a sign-on bonus, which is a new feature for us, and then an additional increase for all our existing drivers, because it's quite possible for existing drivers to go somewhere else and basically make the same as they're making here. So we don't want that to happen. So that's our recommendation. I'm happy to answer any questions about what we see in other districts or anything about how we're going to implement it.
Any questions? Okay, do I get a motion to give the bus driver hourly wage increase?
Motion. Second.
Roll call.
I'm sorry, who seconded? Okay, Mrs. Leyba?
Aye.
Mrs. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Mrs. Dye?
Aye.
Mr. Laudadio?
Aye.
Mrs. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Parthamos?
Aye.
Mr. Stoltman?
Aye.
Okay, the expansion of free lunch for all students.
Thank you for the support on the bus driver proposal. What we have here is an explanation of a lunch and breakfast program known as the CEP. Tim, if you wouldn't mind hitting the slide program that is also on the agenda. It's the next item below this one on the agenda. Yeah, presentation. We offer free meals to students already, but it's a program that requires students to show financial need. Most of them are able to do this automatically, and the state just provides us a computer download with the information. But about 250 families apply every year, asking us to analyze their financial situation and provide them with free meals. And lastly, for students that don't qualify for free meals, the meals are available for sale. So this program goes by the acronym NSLP, which is there on page 2. Page 3 is a different acronym. It's the Community Eligibility Provision, which is kind of a mouthful, so we call it CEP. In CEP, all students eat for free. That means we don't have to solicit any applications, we don't have to get a download from the state. There's still time for us to enroll for the upcoming year. Our neighbors in Wooddale recently enrolled, which brought the program to our attention again after we considered it a couple times in past years, but had not considered it lately. If the district chooses to join this program, we have to stay in for 4 years. I've got more detail on the future slides, but this is the gist of how it differs compared to our current program. Financially, CEP is a lower amount of reimbursement to the district, so it'll cost us about $90,000 a year compared to the other program that we're running.
And that's from the revenue that we get from lunch,
Right.
from the paid lunch.
Right, and taking into account the fact that we're likely to sell more meals if they're free. We've got some experience with that because of COVID. So that's an amount the district can absorb. And the main reason I can say that with confidence is that we've been running the lunch program here in the district for many years, and we keep track of the profit and loss every year, which we're required to do by the federal government. So we know from that the program could, basically absorb 90,000 less of revenue and still be okay. And it's not money that we can spend on other things in the district anyway. You understand that the lunch program can't raise money that we can use to buy some non-meal related program. So it's affordable. The second thing is that without having free lunch applications, there's a lot less work to do both at the schools, and I'll spell that out on another slide. So here's just a little more information about the the reason the finances are different. The reimbursement rate is lower in CEP. I think that the federal government has made the guess that we're gonna sell more lunches, and so they can afford to give us a little bit less per lunch. And that's pretty accurate. There is some gain from having higher volume. In past analyses, in like 2011 and 2014, I was really unable to predict how much volume might change in a situation like this, because we've never done it. But in COVID, we had free lunch for an entire year under a COVID program. And so it's really pretty straightforward to just go back to the 21-22 year and see how many lunches and breakfasts we sold. And I think we can quite reasonably assume that those numbers will return next year this year if we're in CEP. So this is how that works out. The current lunch program under NSLP in the second column, that's about $146,000 before we buy new equipment to pay for staff and overhead. So that number is going to change to something in the mid range of the 40s to the 50s. So you can tell it's a decrease of about $90,000 to $100,000 depending on how much volume there is in breakfast and lunch. School staff will be grateful to have this program. There are three big things there that are worth your attention. The first bullet is sort of the most interesting. Illinois requires us to serve breakfast after the bell. And what that means is the kids come in, they either play outside on the playground or they do something inside at the school, and then the bell rings and they head off to their first class or to their homeroom if it's a K-5. We have to serve them breakfast at that time. The way we choose to do that is we do it in the hallway from a cart. And so we've got computers on those carts and we're scanning kids' ID cards, and so we can do that a lot more quickly and easily if we don't have to worry about which students are free and which students are paid. It goes pretty fast now. I don't want you to think that the school staff is taking half the morning to get this done. They're really good at it, but this would make it easier. On field trips, free lunch is a bit of a challenge because our teachers are not supposed to know what students in their class are qualified for free lunch and which ones aren't. That's confidential information. CEP will make that a lot easier. When there's a field trip, we can give lunch to everybody and not have to worry about it. Lastly, we always have unpaid meals. The reason for that is that we're forbidden by law from denying a meal to a student who gets in line. All right? So some families could apply for free lunch and don't. Some aren't eligible but just don't have any money in their account that day. We get most of that money, but we don't get all of it. It's very difficult to collect it. And the number one reason is that you can't enforce it by telling the family, next week at lunch we won't serve your child. That's not an option. So the CEP eliminates that. The whole thing goes away. There will be uncollected meals. And that's a big deal for the school secretaries. Each of the schools sends out a reminder every 2 weeks, I believe it is, about unpaid balances. And so you make that reminder go away, it's a lot less effort for them. The middle school principals will be happy because usually it's at graduation time that these matters get resolved. Okay. Last but not least, at the admin center, it also makes life a little easier. We evaluate about 250 to 260 applications a year. We might still ask for applications from a few families in order to apply fee waivers, but we have very few fees to begin with. The district's policy is not to charge fees for most things, and so this will be simpler for us than some other districts. And then there are a couple of finer points for the grant management team. But basically those things they're all solvable. Many other districts are in CEP, so the federal agencies that want to use free lunch data have by now made their peace with the fact that it doesn't exist and they're going to have to get their answer in some other way. So that's all workable. I really just included this slide just to show that we've done our homework about making sure this is workable. All right, so you've let me talk a lot about this. I'm happy to answer any questions. I would request your approval if the board's inclined to act on it tonight.
Comment. It might be unpopular, but I'm kind of against it, of this, and there's a few reasons why. Number one is that, I think I want to point out one thing. So this year, when I went to go pay for my kids' lunches, there was a couple different spots that you could do that. And if you would pay in one place, it wouldn't load up to this until it got to another spot. And it would cause a big delay. And So it was very confusing about, first of all, where you were supposed to pay. So I don't know if that ever affected anyone else, but it was confusing to me, and I know I reached out at least to some people, and I was like, I keep saying didn't put any money in, and I put in like $100 last week, like what's the deal? So I don't know if that has anything to do with anything, but that's number one. Number two is when there was free food, both of my kids would come home with food coming out of their backpacks, and it was junk food for the most part. It wasn't healthy stuff. And they weren't eating it. And they're like, they just had me take it. They said I had to take it. And my refrigerator would be full of like snacks that they got from school. And they said over and over, I had to take it. And when it came to this year, there was more autonomy in what they were able to choose to eat. And they weren't as wasteful with it. I mean, it was teaching them to be more independent and more thoughtful and considerate towards what they're picking and choosing to eat. And I think that's what we want for our kids, not just to have this mindless smorgasbord of food, just to be wasteful. And that's just how I feel about it, I guess. And I understand that there's some people that it is a struggle, but there's also a program for that. And I just don't want our students to become the kind of students that feel like it's not a consideration, that it is something to be considerate about, and that I don't want anybody to think that just because you come here that everything is free, because registration is free, all the materials are free, and the food is free, everything is free. And I don't want to send the wrong message, like, can't we ask for something, some accountability from our community to show that you're accountable and participating in this experience in more than one way. And that's just something I feel.
I do have a question. I know we were in contracts with trying to find another vendor, or we were gonna create the menu, so that's still a go. If we go with this, we can still do that, correct?
Yes, we have a contract with Sodexo that is only for the upcoming year. And then we will go out to bid, and any food company can bid on the contract for the following school year. So that still proceeds, independent of any choice you make tonight.
Okay. And
So
we're
regardless
still-
of if it's CEP or not, the food doesn't change.
Right, food doesn't change.
Yeah, because I know you mentioned creating a new menu and all of that, so.
Yes, all that's already done.
Cool.
Right.
So Lori, what you're talking about at the selection of food, that won't change. They'll still be selecting food. From your first example of, parents paying, we did have a couple parents bring that to our attention, and we were in the process of fixing that so that parents weren't facing that for the next school year. In this program, you wouldn't have to worry about it because you wouldn't be loading money on any cards. Lunch would be provided for the students. So I think that's the difference between this program. That would now no longer be a problem for any family.
Right, and we'll reach out to any parent who's already loaded up their student's card and make sure they have a chance to get the money back. Because it's unlikely to be anything else to spend it on, so.
And I had like the opposite happen with my son. He was always giving his lunch away because he had classmates that didn't have money for lunch. So he would give his lunch away to kids that were hungry. So he never brought any food home, but he was always giving his lunch away and his food away. So,
I have a question.
kids hungry.
Sorry. I'd be curious to know, out of the 260 applicants we received, how many of them we approved? And I know there's obviously like a cutoff, right? So how many of those families that were denied were just under the cutoff that they didn't make it?
The levels that we use to evaluate whether you're qualify or not are set by the USDA. And we don't print them on our copy of the application that we pass out, but it is kind of publicly available. So our assumption is always that people that are applying kind of know in advance whether they're gonna make it or not. So as a result, nearly everybody that applies gets approved because they're coming in under the level that the USDA has announced as the level. Whether the ones that are denied are close or not, I can't really tell you. There's actually two layers of qualification. In the first layer, lunch is free. In the second layer, you pay only 40 cents. Okay, so those would be people that are close. There's actually very few of those in the whole district. Probably only 100 out of the 1,000 or so that qualify, more like 1,200. So only about 100 of them are in that 40-cent layer where you were close to free but not quite. So I would guess not very many are missing it by a lot.
It's 65% right now that are getting free lunch.
Yes, right.
I would also like to say that I think because we are eligible for CEP because of the makeup of our community. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that too, that we have an opportunity to serve our community in that way. And, you know, to what Anita said, there are parents that probably are like, well, I'm not gonna get approved, so I'm not even submitting this. And, you know, so I think for me, I'm in support of it because of that, because if we're able to ease that burden for families or kids, you know, who you just don't have to think about it, you know, you're going to school, you're getting a meal, and they are, and for the most part, they are anyway, right? Because as Paul said, we don't deny a meal for a child. But this, I think, puts that away from a parent or guardian who might be thinking about that. And it's just a way to kind of provide that to our community. So I think I'm for it for that reason.
I agree with Marisol, and also it's not killing us. Money-wise, we're not making a ton of money on it, so it's not gonna hurt the district financially. So we might as well feed the kids.
True, I mean, I agree, I don't disagree with that, I guess. I also feel too, I just wanna request or propose that, so I think if you go to certain middle schools, kids are paid cash, right? And then you go to another middle school and every kid has free lunch, and we're somewhere in the middle. And, I know that, for example, at Blackhawk, there's, used to be like a snack bar or whatever, and, it bothers me as a parent to think like, I can't send my kid to school with a couple bucks and have him practice using money and how to become more independent that way. So now he's gonna be a freshman in high school, and he's gonna be buying his lunch, and he's never gonna have any experience of how to manage himself. And I just don't think that we're not helping them to level up, to be prepared for those experiences. And it's like, I can do that at home, but how are they supposed to know how to get there? We're not just dealing with people who don't have money and kids who are in kindergarten. You know, we're getting like older kids, and they're gonna be independent soon. So I also feel like we have to be considerate with these other experiences that kids are having, not just kids who don't have money to eat. Because there's a whole bunch of other kids that are needing to learn how to be more independent. For example, if like I'm a single parent and I need to have my kids go get something, there's no one else to take them, they have to be able to know how to do it. It's like there's other circumstances too where I think we need to be prepared. And I just don't know if we're really preparing our kids for that. They're not even being mindful of food that way. Does that make sense? It's like, it's easier for parents because it's better for kids.
I mean, I understand your point, but I don't think it's applicable in this situation because they don't use cash anyway, right? It's uploaded to an account, if I'm not mistaken. That's how we do DJs.
Yeah.
We upload it to an account, so it's not like they have that interaction with money anyway.
Well, they can, there's certain places in the middle school where they used to have more options to do those kinds of things.
That's supposed to continue.
Well, it was supposed to last year.
The snack bar at the middle school is supposed to continue.
Do they use cash for that?
Yeah, they use cash for that.
That wouldn't be free.
That's not part of the free lunch program.
No.
So they'd still have that option.
So they'd have
for
that option.
snacks.
But those things were supposed to have been happening, but then it doesn't.
Well, I
And so
thought
it's like
they don't have
vending
them.
machines and stuff like that.
Also, they do.
My daughter spent a ton on cookies last year.
Likes cookies.
Are you sure?
They're saying it happens.
They could buy, things with Blackhawk bucks too, when they earn them, they can buy like fruit snacks and crackers and.
In the cafeteria?
No, I don't know.
Through the PBIS rewards.
There's like
Yeah.
different rewards that they can use like money in the different schools.
I mean, I don't wanna, I just want every student to be, you know, thought of, not one is catered to one part of a demographic. I want everyone to feel like, I don't think having free lunch for students who can't afford it is a bad idea. Just wanna make sure that we're to be their best
I
place.
just don't think whether families have money or not, the kids shouldn't go hungry. Even if someone has money,
Well, for
they
sure.
might not
I mean, they have to get free lunch
remember to
anyway.
pay, and the kids might be hungry because the parents forgot to load. And then the kids know they don't have money on their ID, so they don't go and,
Well, I mean, they don't get denied no matter what.
but they don't know that. Sometimes they know their parents didn't put money on their card, and
Yeah.
like my son's friends will say, like, my parents didn't load my card and I don't have money for lunch, and they won't go ask for free lunch, they don't know better, so so they'll go hungry, and so there's kids like giving out lunches or sharing.
Any other questions or anything?
No.
Okay. Do I get a motion to approve expansion of free lunch for all students? Okay, do I get a second? Victoria, second. Roll call.
Mrs. Dye?
Aye.
Mrs. Gonzalez?
I
Mr. Laudatio?
Aye.
Mrs. Leyva?
Aye.
Mrs. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Parthamos?
Aye.
Mr. Stolman?
Okay, E, authorized bus purchase. Mr. Novak.
Yeah, I know that we just did this a few months ago, but what we do here is we're watching the repair cost on our buses and trying to compare it to what the value of the bus is after it's done being repaired. So if we can repair it for $5,000 and keep it running the rest of the year, we do. When we get a $15,000 estimate from the garage for a bus that's only gonna be worth $3,000 after the repair, in good conscience, we just can't do that. So we have a bus that came in that way towards the middle of summer, and we have another one that's probably just one repair estimate away from being in the same category. That one runs fine, okay, it's totally safe, but when the engine goes out on that one, then the repairs can be very expensive. So we'd like to get ahead of the curve and just get a couple additional buses at this time. We're keeping our fleet at 18. It might grow to 19 until that one that is suspect eventually gets the big repair bill, but when it goes, we won't replace it.
Any questions? Hearing none, do I get a motion to authorize a bus purchase?
Motion. I'll second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Leyva?
Aye.
Mrs. Dye? Mr. Stolman?
I,
Mrs. Gonzalez? Mr. Laudatio?
Aye.
Mrs. Miller?
Aye.
Mrs. Parthamos?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, any new business? No new business, hearing none, no closed session.
No closed session.
Okay, hearing none, do I get a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, District 2 Board meeting